What if you could step away from every responsibility for 40 days? No emails, work calls, or guilt, and rediscover what truly makes your heart sing. Imagine this. A grant not only covers your duties while you're gone, but also gives you $25,000 to explore anywhere in the world. It covers airfare, ground transportation, lodging, meals, experiences, all of that. And the only rule? Disconnect completely and immerse yourself in things that make your heart sing. Over the next 40 days, I'll be sharing my journey with this exact challenge. So whether I'm snorkeling with sharks, hitchhiking in the back of pickup trucks, trekking across the Serengeti, tracking big game, struggling to breathe and not freeze to death on the top of the 20,000-foot mountain, or breaking bread with new friends from around the globe, I hope you'll join me on this journey. Been with SuperPumped podcast, and I am here at the Peters Hives where they have two large beehives, and I don't have the bee suit on right now. Got to be a little bit careful. But as you think about turnover in your business, one of the most important things you need to do is tell your people what the purpose of the business is. What are you doing? It's amazing when I talk to different businesses and I'm like, what's your purpose? And all they can say is, we're here to make money. And I'm like, surely there's something more redeeming, more societally purposeful for the employees or the world at large. And yet, a lot of times they don't have an answer to that. It's a bunch of fuddling around and we make money. People aren't going to stick in organizations like that because we all crave meaning in our lives. Just like these bees, they don't just buzz around me, which they're actually starting to buzz around a little bit because they just feel like buzzing, right? They buzz around with the ultimate goal of making sweet honey. So in your business, you need to communicate. What's the goal? In this particular case, make the honey. But whatever it is you do, give that meaning. I talk about how in cleaning, if you clean that building properly, they can do a surgery there, or they can harvest organs and tissues, or they can educate young minds if you're cleaning an educational facility. Or if you're in food service, you can talk about how that food is helping leaders fuel up, be ready for the next thing, or cough. Whatever that purpose is, figure that out. The other thing is, their essential thing is honey. But I want you to remember, as you think about honey, how can you be sweet to your employees? If your business is making something sweet like honey, and then you're sweet to them, you are going to slay the turnover dragon. Because people want to work in places where they're appreciated, where people value them, where the boss is like, man, I really appreciate you, Sally or John or Jaquan or whoever is in your organization. So think about, how can you be sweet to them? How can you reward them? How can you help them understand this is purposeful work and you're part of it? We love you. As you think about your organization, and it's swarming around and everyone's busy with activities, think of what's the purpose of all that activity. Give voice to that, name it with your employees, and I guarantee you will have much more success than your competitors at keeping those employees, just simply by telling them the sweet honey you are about to make. This has been Ben with SuperPumped Podcasts, and I am grateful to the bees here at the Peters Hive that they did not swarm me, and super pumped out. If you've ever dreamed of pressing pause and rediscovering what makes your heart sing, I invite you to follow along on our YouTube channel or on SuperPumped Life on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'll be posting every day, not only a podcast, but updates, stories, bonus coverage, and reflections through this Super Pumped adventure. If you enjoyed today's show, I would be so grateful if you told your friends about it, and also if you subscribed or followed us so that you don't miss future episodes. If you're one of our awesome audio-only listeners, I would encourage you to go over to YouTube to see the incredible video footage of all that is going on in this 40-day Super Pumped adventure in the wilderness. Ben with SuperPumped Podcast, continuing our series on turnover. I've worked in a lot of different organizations of all sizes, from nonprofits like the Cincinnati Art Institute to Playhouse in the Park to even big downtown companies, major flags, major corporations. One of the things I see that causes turnover is a lack of chain of command. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you have an employee and they maybe have an official in the org chart, a direct report boss, right? Most people do. But here's the thing. In many organizations, you also have other people up the chain or maybe sideways in the chain that also feel they have the right or responsibility to also direct that employee. I've been in restaurants where you have an owner who's giving one set of directions and you have a general manager who's giving another set of directions, and maybe you have an assistant manager that's saying another thing, and the frontline employee is like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to be doing here? And they're confused. And do you know what they end up doing? They end up just saying, the heck with this place. You don't know what you're doing. One person's telling me this, one person's telling me that. They get frustrated. They get really just down on themselves. They're like, I'm out the door. And what does that create for you? It creates turnover. If that person leaves, you've got to then start that whole process over. But if you can clean up your chain of command, and I have been guilty of this myself as an owner, nobody wants a meddling owner because it messes up chain of command and it confuses everything. I've actually, talking about turnover, I've lived it where I've created my own turnover just by my own stupidity and my own mistakes. Rather than trusting my managers, trusting my direct reports to do their job, and even trusting that they're going to trust their people down the line. So rather as an owner than come in and usurp the GM and the assistant GM and the crew chief, let them do their jobs. And when I get to thinking about this, I just need to remind myself, in every organization, there should be a queen. In this particular hive here of bees, the queen bee sets the tone. The queen bee is the authority. And then under that, you've got worker bees, you've got drone bees. There's no confusion. There's no turnover. Everybody does their job. And do you know what's awesome about the bees? They make sweet honey. That is awesome. I want in your business, your people to be buzzing around, productive, excited to go to work, to make the sweet honey, whatever that honey is for you, and to slay your turnover dragon. This has been with Super Pumped. Thanks for joining me today, and go out and eat some honey this weekend. If you've ever dreamed of pressing pause and rediscovering what makes your heart sing, I invite you to follow along on our YouTube channel or on Super Pumped Life on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'll be posting every day, not only a podcast, but updates, stories, bonus coverage, and reflections through this Super Pumped adventure. And if you're one of our awesome audio-only listeners, I would encourage you to go over to YouTube to see the incredible video footage of all that is going on in this 40-day Super Pumped adventure in the wilderness. Then with Super Pumped Business Podcast, one of the biggest disconnects in most businesses that I see is this idea of pathways to promotion. In businesses, most people in the C-suite, the executive suite, and particularly in HR, think that they have a clear process for how an employee would go from wherever they start in your organization to move up through the ranks. But the reality is, when you talk to the managers of those employees or the specific employees, they have no idea how to get from where they're going. So one of the things you want to do if you want to retain those really high achieving employees, or even just above average people and not lose them to a competitor, is create pathways to promotion, that next step in their career. So the first thing you want to do if you want to create pathways to promotion, you want to teach specific skills. So you want to say, hey, employee Joe, I know you're here right now, but if you want to get to the next level, here are the skills you need to acquire. These are some retrainings you can do. We got a quarterly in-service on that, or we've got a conference you can go to, or maybe there's some computer-based training. You can complete these modules and we'll have you primed for that next step. The other thing is you can do coaching. So that's a really big one. A lot of times there's a heart for people to move up, but they have no idea how to do it. They need someone to help them, which also leads to mentors. Mentors are critical, particularly for certain disadvantaged groups. Having those mentors within your business is going to pay huge dividends. At MIT, the Sloan School has done tons of work on this topic. And one of the things they found, 63% of workers who left their company in 2023 did so because they saw no pathway to promotion. Everybody in HR, everybody in the executive suite and the leadership's like, yeah, we got promotional paths. But the reality is the employees don't see it. It wasn't operationalized for them. It has to be drilled down. The other thing they found was if it's DIY, it's never going to get done. Employees are struggling, particularly at the lower ends, with just all the aspects of the job and life and kind of what's going on. You've really got to spell it out. Here are the steps you need to take to be considered for the next promotion. Then the third thing you've got to do, you can talk all day about pathways to promotion, but if every time there's an open position, you go outside the organization to fill that, you know what that does to your existing employees? It completely devalues them and they start polishing up their resume. You want to promote from within. That is critical. You want the good workers that you have to take it to the next level with you. And that really encourages everybody, because if this person gets promoted up to here, then somebody backfills their position, so they're getting promoted, and then somebody down the line even further is getting promoted. So it begins to lift everybody up. Now, one question I'm asked is, okay, that sounds great. Let's promote from within. What happens if you have 2 or 3 different applicants within your existing structure, and you give it to candidate A, they get promoted, and candidate B and C are still where they're at? Communication is critical in this. And this is why coaching and mentors are a part of this process. So if you pick employee A for that promotion within, you need to tell employee B and employee C, hey, listen, you didn't get it this time, and then you double back. But if you'd work a little harder on acquiring these skills that A actually went and got, then you're going to be there the next time. The other thing is, and we saw this in our cleaning business in particular, let's say we had a large crew at a big account, right? And we promoted employee A to shift lead, or maybe the whole crew leader, right? And employee B and C are like, now I'm stuck. A's just got that promotion, but you can cross within your company. So we would say to B and C, hey, you're not quite there. We need to work on this and this, but we have $2 million out there in bids and proposals right now. And we see a role where if we land those, which we are confident we are going to, we're going to be able to plug you in if you add these skills. If you want to keep your best employees, if retention is important to you, if slaying the turnover dragon is important to you and saving all that money and building a better company, promote from within and build pathways to promotion. And if you do that, you are going to have a happier, more productive, and more profitable workplace. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a super pumped day. If you need more resources, go on over to superpumped.com or hit me up, book an appointment. Let's talk about your particular company. Let's dig in and let's figure this thing out. See you next time. If you've ever dreamed of pressing pause and rediscovering what makes your heart sing, I invite you to follow along on our YouTube channel or on Super Pumped Life on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'll be posting every day, not only a podcast, but updates, stories, bonus coverage, and reflections through this super pumped adventure. And if you're one of our awesome audio-only listeners, I would encourage you to go over to YouTube to see the incredible video footage of all that is going on in this 40-day super pumped adventure in the wilderness. Ben with Super Pumped Podcast, and I'm here to tell you why something as simple as pizza and bingo could help you slay the turnover dragon in your business, keep your great employees, and have more fun. One of the things that employees cite time and time again is that community is an important part of their overall well-being, their overall health, but also their overall happiness in their job. Those employers that are able to build community within their organization are much more likely to keep their employees. And those who don't build community, where you just come in like a little robot and you do your job and you go home, are pretty likely to go find that somewhere else. Because all of the psychology is that as human beings, we crave connection. I want to talk just about simple ways you can build community in your business. This particular one is Pizza and bingo. A hotel I worked in, every month, they order pizza and they play bingo. And it's across all departments. So you have people from housekeeping and front desk and engineering and food and beverage and all those things, valets. And they all get together and they're one big company and it builds community. And people talk about that. Man, you were lucky to win the bingo and win the big prize or that kind of thing. Simple way to build it. Another way, my friend Chris works up at Nevers in Minneapolis. And in the summer, they do these Friday cookouts where they bring in a bunch of food and they just sit out in picnic tables and just enjoy lunch together, catching up with one another. Not necessarily worried about work, but just connecting as human beings. One of the things we did, one of my probably favorite things of our entire company was our holiday Christmas party. When it started out, we were a small company. We had it at our house. People came over, and I can remember one year an employee actually wanted a tour. It was an old house, old Victorian house in Dayton, Ohio. She wanted a tour, and she just gave herself a self-tour, and I was still getting ready, and all of a sudden this employee was in my bedroom. It was funny. We did this party at our house, and then it kept growing as the company grew, and then we rented this really cool mansion, and we had carriage rides, and at that party, we recognized every employee. We had a pianist. It was really fun, and people looked forward to that. Even though these were cleaning jobs, this was the pinnacle event, and it was fun catching up with people maybe you'd been through training together with, but went off to different accounts in different parts of the city. Get those events rolling. Second thing to remember, and it goes with the holiday party, is get off campus. It is much easier to build community and to bond with your employees if you get out of your work environment. We had one particular employee when we owned our coffee shop who was involved in community theater. One of the things we did was the other employees all wanted to go see them perform in the big performance, right? As a company, we said, okay, that's cool. Why don't we fund the tickets and we fund everyone going out for pizza and beer after? We foot the bill for that. Everyone went. I wasn't even a part of it, but that bonding event brought those employees close together. There was a brotherhood and a sisterhood with that. I also think about service projects. There's a company I know now that goes down to the Free Store Food Bank every month, and they help sort through donations and help families out. And that's something that they can do across departments. People form bonds. That's a cool thing. Another thing they do here in Cincinnati, the Flying Pig Marathon. There's two ways they support that. Some want to be ambitious and actually run the marathon, and they raise money for charity. And just through that kind of team and training, bonding process, that's good. But there's other companies that they sponsor a particular mile where they hand out the water and the Gatorade. All the people who are interested in the company get up really early that day and they go out on the race course. They fill water glasses and Gatorade and pick up the dirty cups because runners slug them and then just chuck them. That's another way. Final thing, though, I want you to think about is this doesn't all have to come from you. Maybe you're like me and you're not the most creative person in the world. You don't have to be, because your employees are really smart. I guarantee you. And they have ideas to build community. Ask them. We have some employees, they wanted to do a kickball team. We're like, sure, we'll sponsor the entrance fee and some uniforms, that kind of thing, put our company logo on them. People had the best time. They talked about kickball leading up to the game, and then after the game, they would go out. It was a lot of fun. Also talking about tailgating. We had an employee who just loved the Bengals, wanted to do a tailgate. Didn't even have tickets to the game, but wanted to invite coworkers to come down once a year, do a big tailgate, reconnect, have a good time, watch the game. That's another option. We also had baseball tickets. We had a full season package, but unused tickets, we could clump those together. We could say if an employee was like, hey, let's get down to the Dodgers game. We'd give them a block of 30 tickets. They could all go down, have a great time, give them a $10 food and beverage credit or 15, whatever you want to do. That's the kind of thing. Put your money where your mouth is. If you want to build community, just fund it. Say, here, we've got a fund to do community building things in this organization. What can you come up with? You will be amazed what your people will come up with. And in the process, here's the crazy thing, of them having fun, of them bonding with one another, of them doing things they really enjoy, they're going to be more connected to your community and your business. You're going to build a strong community. Those bonds are going to tie them there. When the next employer comes barking, come here, come there, you're going to be able to hold on to them. If you want to slay the turnover dragon, build community in your organization. Do the cookout, do the pizza, do the bingo, whatever's fun, build that community up. Super pumped out. along this journey, I'm not just seeking adventure and renewal. I'm carving out space we so often don't have, to think about and to ponder and to meditate and to pray on life's bigger questions. What is the meaning of life? Where does God exist? Does God exist? How do I fit into the cosmos? What is my purpose? These things that so often we just can't even take the time to put the mental energy into. I have 40 days to dig into that. And along the way, I hope I can muster the courage to be vulnerable, to share some of those struggles that I'll be going through, and also some of the cool discoveries and thoughts and adventures that come my way. I would be so grateful if you told your friends about it, and also if you subscribed or followed us so that you don't miss future episodes. If you're one of our awesome audio-only listeners, I would encourage you to go over to YouTube to see the incredible video footage of all that is going on in this 40-day super pumped adventure in the wilderness. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow.